inequalities by multiplication and division. Essential question. What causes the symbol to flip when dividing an inequality? Question. What do we have to remember about multiplication and division inequalities? If you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must flip your inequality symbol around. This lesson focuses just on division, so I'm going to show you why this is true with division. Then for 5-2 day 2, I'll show you why it's true with multiplication. So I'm just going to write a basic inequality. Let's say 5 is less than 10. And I'm going to write that twice. I'm going to divide both sides by positive 5 and negative 5, and we're going to see what happens. I just picked 5. You can pick any number you want to as long as you do it to both sides. That is allowed. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Bring down my inequality symbol. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Is 1 less than 2? Yep. So I'm going to put a check mark. Now if I divide both sides by negative 5, 5 divided by negative 5 is negative 1. Is 10 divided by negative 5 is negative 2. If I bring down my inequality symbol, is negative 1 less than negative 2? No, it's not. Negative 1 is greater than negative 2. So that is why I have to flip the symbol. Your inequality will not be correct if you don't flip the symbol. This is true no matter what. No matter what, if you divide by a negative, you have to flip your symbol. That is the key thing you have to remember in today's lesson and in all the future lessons in Chapter 5. If you divide by a negative, you have to flip the sign. Let's get into some of the examples. So let's start here with 5x is greater than negative 20. Draw my train tracks. 5x is the same as 5 times x, so the opposite of timesing is dividing. Remember, our goal is to get x by itself. Now you have to ask yourself, what am I dividing by? I'm dividing by a positive 5, so I don't have to flip it. If I were dividing by a negative 5, then I would need to flip it. It doesn't matter that this 20 is negative. We don't care about the 20. We only care about the 5. So I'm going to bring down my original inequality symbol, and I don't have to flip. Next one, 16 is less than 4x. Draw my train tracks. If I'm trying to get x alone, the opposite of multiplication is division. So divide both sides by 4. I divided by a positive 4, so I do not need to flip my inequality. I kept it the same. This is the same as this. One thing I do need to do, though, is I need to rewrite it. We always want to have our variable on the left. Technically, 4 is less than x is a correct answer, but I want you to get in the habit of no matter what, always putting the x on the left. So I'll put my x over here, the 4 over here. My Pac-Man mouth is eating the x, so my Pac-Man mouth has to eat the x. X is greater than 4 is my answer. Negative 7x is greater than negative 49. Draw my train tracks. This time I'm dividing by a negative 7. Since I'm dividing by a negative, I have to flip. Do that immediately. Immediately when you know you need to flip that inequality. Negative 49 divided by negative 7 is positive 7. I don't need to rewrite this one because the x is already on the left. Negative 8x is greater than 64. I'm dividing by a negative 8, so that means I have to flip. Instead of greater than, I'm going to switch it to less than. 64 divided by negative 8 is negative 8. There is my answer. So So both of those I had to flip because of this negative and this negative. Negative 25 is greater than or equal to 5x. So 5 times x, the opposite of multiplication, is division. I'm dividing by a positive 5, so I don't have to flip my inequality symbol. I do need to rewrite it though because the x is on the right. I want it on the left. My Pac-Man mouth is opening up to the negative 5, so my Pac-Man mouth needs to open up to the negative 5. It wants to eat the negative 5. Negative 3x is less than 75. I'm dividing both sides by a negative 3. Since I'm dividing by a negative 3, I have to flip. So it'll go from less than to greater than. 75 divided by negative 3 is negative 25. Variables on the left, so I don't need to rewrite it. Negative 12 is greater than or equal to negative 3x. Divide both sides by negative 3. Since I'm dividing by a negative, I have to flip. Negative 12 divided by negative 3 is positive 4. This one I also have to rewrite. So I'm going to put the x on the left, the 4 on the right. My Pac-Man mouth is eating the x, so my Pac-Man mouth needs to eat the x. Now you'll notice our inequality actually ends up the same direction that it did when we started. So when you have to flip it and you have to rewrite it, it actually ends up the way it began. Negative 50 is less than 5x. We're dividing by positive 5. We don't care that the 50 is negative. That doesn't affect our inequality. The only thing that matters is if the 5 is positive or negative. So bring down my x. My inequality stays the same. Negative 10. My final step is to rewrite it. My Pac-Man mouth is eating the x. My Pac-Man mouth needs to eat the x. Summary. Your homework for this lesson is page 293, numbers 6 through 9, 21 through 29.